Decided, and now a lot of the focus on the final day will be on the battle to avoid relegation, with both Spurs and West Ham vying to stay in the Premier League. So let's chat about that now. Can you believe that Spurs are kind of in the position that they're in going into this final day?
Yeah, I can. I can now. Yeah. Listen, I wouldn't have maybe a few months ago, but just the level of performance that they've been dishing out, and I know De Zerbi's got an upturn in their performances, but I have to say, even I was at this game the other night, and I have to say I was really surprised with one. I think that about 10 minutes into the game, that was a great goal, by the way, by Enzo Fernandez. 10 minutes into the game, I was looking at some of the Spurs away fans, and it was like empty seats, and I thought they was really quiet. Now, in fact, we got this second goal at probably Spurs' best spell. They had a little 5-minute spell of putting us under a bit of pressure, but I know they get this goal towards the end, but I couldn't believe that De Zerbi waited so long to make changes in that game. He brought on James Maddison, Sarr and Jed Spence. And if I was James Maddison warming up for the amount he did, he didn't come on till 70-something minutes.
Yeah, he looked lively, didn't he? When
he was their best player in like 15 minutes or so. And I was just like, the quality that Moani and Matthias Tell was giving Spurs out wide was so poor. I was really surprised, and in the end, Chelsea were holding on, and it was only like 15-20 minute spell that Spurs upped the intensity a little bit. Yeah, I couldn't believe.
Tells the story, his face as well, I think.
I mean, for one, let's get it right. He's going to be dejected from the result, but everyone who knows Madders knows that he loves playing football, wants to play all the time, and you could tell on the sideline he was itching to get on the pitch. Waited so long, considering how poor the attacking options were for Spurs during the game, but Chelsea held on in the end, to be honest.
I just want to pick you up on something you said about the Spurs fans. You said that there were spaces there, but can you understand it though? They're kind of not believing in their team at the moment. They've got good reason to.
Yeah, I kind of get it if you want to be frustrated or whatever, but you ain't got a load of tickets to buy anyway to go to Chelsea. One, you're in a relegation battle. And as I said, brilliant and all that, I thought they were awful for about 70 minutes, like considering when you kind of needed them most. Yeah. I just thought it was poor, and now they leave themselves in a predicament.
Deserve to be where they are right now as well.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't think you can look at either team and say you don't deserve to be down there. That's one thing that you can draw up cup competitions, or people who've won tournaments or got through rounds in cup competitions. The league don't lie. There's no getting away from the fact, especially at this stage of the season, sometimes you might have a slow start or whatever, but when you've played 37 games, if you find yourself in the bottom three, it's because you deserve to be there. Now, this performance against Newcastle was come at such a bad time for them, because it was up there, was probably one of their worst of the season. They lacked in so many different areas. But again, if you're a West Ham player watching the Spurs a couple of days ago lose to Chelsea, do you get another little boost and go, listen, we never know. There's been plenty of stranger things that have happened on final days of seasons. So listen, they've got to try and do their job and hope that Spurs don't get anything from their game. But both teams deserve to be where they're at, and both teams are going to have to earn their way out of the problems that they're in.
We talk about final days because the man alongside me has experience of relegation battle on the final day of the season. Unfortunately for Bolton, it was a Jody Morris goal for Chelsea, which helped relegate them. This was back in 1998. Do you remember it well? What did it feel like to
yeah, because I didn't really, outside of the right boot, I didn't really score many. So yeah, I remembered it, but it was a weird situation because a load of the Chelsea punters wanted Everton to go down. So sometimes they was cheering for certain things that Bolton were doing. And I remember I got a few beers sent in the post from Everton fans, actually. But yeah, as I said, I didn't really pay too much attention about who was going down. I was just pleased that I was playing, and I was pleased that I scored a goal. So yeah, as I said, it didn't happen much for me. So,
in terms of this one though, who do you think's going down? Do you think it's Spurs or do you think it's West Ham?
I think it's West Ham, but it wouldn't surprise me if both teams lose.
Really?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not. I think Spurs have, as I said, they have had an uptake since De Zerbi has been there.
Yeah.
And maybe West Ham have kind of had their little boost. I mean, probably 4 or 5 games ago now, they was looking like they were threatening again. And you had Bowen and Somerville that were doing bits of like Fernandes in midfield.
Is West Ham's game easier against a Leeds team that don't mind?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a difficult one, but obviously Leeds are safe now and things like that. I just don't think you can't predict how either team is going to perform, and the fact that they're so inconsistent, it doesn't matter who they're playing at times. Like I said, Spurs have underperformed against plenty of teams this year already, so have West Ham. West Ham have turned in a couple of decent performances against teams you maybe expected them to lose to. So,
just finally on Spurs. So say they stay up, just as we talked about Arsenal potentially dominating or not dominating, you think. Do you think this is going to be a problem for them? Because they were 17th last season and they're doing it again this time around. Do you think this is, something they should really look at and think they need to be nowhere near the relegation?
Yeah, I mean, it did surprise me this season, because even though that they was obviously really poor the previous one, when Thomas Frank went in there, I felt, if they're going to back him a little bit, he's going to be able to do okay. But the form at home for somewhere that is such an amazing place to go and play, it just shows you that when the fans are not maybe really sort of on your side and sort of trying to galvanise your performance, shows how the reverse can, when you're not confident going to your home stadium, it can have such an adverse effect. And even, like, we were talking about this the other night, but Chelsea have had it themselves at home this year. They've been poor. So
do you feel more pressure as a player?
Yeah, I think you do feel the pressure, because you hear every moan and groan. If they're not singing in a kind of confident, encouraging way, you feel the other side of it, where every misplaced pass, every tackle that you've lost, every time a decision goes your way, if it's moaning and groaning, and you then hear the boos at half-time and all that, sometimes players that... I think part of the reason why you get West Ham and Spurs in this position is because they haven't got many leaders, they ain't got great characters in amongst the squad. Maybe you have the odd one or two. When you lack that, when it becomes an even more difficult place to play, that goes against you even more. That's when you need your characters. That's what I'm saying. James Maddison is a character. No matter what you think of him, how good of a player he is, he wants to get on the ball and make stuff happen. That's why I was so surprised they waited. So I was pleased as a Chelsea fan they waited, but I was surprised, because I think the more characters and personality and winners you have on the pitch, the better chance you got.
So if Spurs stay up, they've got to also get that football so that the fans can get back on side.
Exactly. And like I said, it's a two-way street. You've got to perform to expect your fans to want to pay money, want to cheer. It's the ones that pay money to purposely turn up and boo is what can do my... Purposely turn up and boo is what can do my head in. But when you turn in some of the performances that these teams have chucked out, you go, yeah, if I was a manager, I'd say you deserve to be booed. And certain things that you say at half-time or at the end of the game should reinforce the fact that they had a right to boo you.
Yeah, job done for Arsenal. The title race is done and dusted, but the fight for Premier League survival will go down to the final day of the season. West Ham sitting in 18th place. They know a win at home to Leeds will keep them up if Tottenham Hotspur lose their home game with Everton on Sunday. Let's head to the London Stadium now and join Chris Reedy.
Yeah, it's been interesting speaking to West Ham fans this afternoon. They're looking at things kind of either one of two ways. In terms of the last three Premier League games, of course, they've lost all three of them. But before them, actually, if we're talking about their home form, where they're going to play against Leeds this weekend, it had been fairly decent. Before the Arsenal game, they had that draw against Manchester City and the wins against Everton and Wolves. So in terms of what's going to happen this Sunday, when we asked West Ham fans this afternoon, here's what they had to say.
I reckon that we've got it in the bag on Sunday. And I reckon Spurs will bottle it. No, I generally do. I reckon Spurs will bottle it and West Ham will do the job.
I'm looking at hopefully a 2-1 for us to Leeds, and obviously praying and hoping that Tottenham don't get the result against Everton. Hope Moyes helps us out a little bit as well.
Nervous. It's the hope that kills you, isn't it? Last night I thought it was all over. Came away with another chance.
I think we're going to win, but it will just depend on whether Spurs win or lose at that point.
I think on the day anything can happen. Spurs didn't look great last night against Chelsea, and I think they might bottle it. But I think Everton can do the job, definitely. I think David Moyes can save us once again.
Expect disappointment and you'll never be disappointed at the end of the day. Boys have just got to go, put on a fight, get the win. But it's all on Tottenham. Just got them to lose.
So West Ham and West Ham fans are going to have to get that Newcastle result out of minds fairly quickly. It was an abject performance, wasn't it? Losing 3-1 but being 3-0 down. Formation didn't really seem to quite work as well. But now it's Leeds. That's the game they have to concentrate on. And in terms of their record against Leeds this season, they had that loss in the Premier League. They had that late fight back here at the London Stadium where they drew 2-2 but went on to lose on penalties. But they're going to have to make it third time lucky, beat them and hope to get a favour from David Moyes, their old boss.
Yeah, that is one of the subplots, isn't it, going into Sunday the Moyes. By the way, what about the fan that said it's in the bag for West Ham? I'm not sure many of these fellow West Ham fans feel the same, Michael.
Go on, I know where you're going. You're going to go Moyesy.
I wasn't actually.
You're going to.
You can go on Moyesy if you want. I was just going to say more that they got the second chance with the result last night. But how do they now go about taking it? Because let's face it, if they play like they did in the first 20 minutes against Newcastle, they've got no chance, have they?
I mean, that was a big shock, wasn't it? But to come into it where you're going, right, it looks like they've got a chance, look like there's a fight away at Brentford. And then obviously against Arsenal, they did well, really. They were very unfortunate, big chance. And then obviously the VAR moment was very, very cruel when there was lots of fouls in that incident. But to be relying on David Moyes, how ironic that it sets up now where David Moyes delivered a lot for the football club, but the fans, not the club, the fans decided it was time to change. And from then on, there's a lot of blame culture towards the ownership, to what West Ham own, etc., to where they've gone with their particular managers, coaches, etc. A lot of the signings and recruitment have obviously not been great, and it's not just down to coaches, we know, but you know, you feel like Nuno has got an understanding, he can find a result out, but I just feel Spurs are just points that's needed, so I think it's irrelevant what West Ham do. What about though this game they've got? Because a few months ago you were looking at the final day, Leeds against West Ham, West Ham Leeds. You thought, could it all come down to that for both sides? But no, Leeds are home and hosed. They're nice and safe. So what sort of Leeds side are West Ham going to be playing on Sunday? I was a little bit wondering what they would bring last week. I did the game against Brighton and I felt like Brighton controlled the possession, the tempo of the squad. They've had a few injuries not go their way, and he probably want to change a few little things around the squad, but it's hard when something's obviously travelling on the game. But them fans give them an unbelievable send-off when they won last week, and whether they'll just start to go, right, we can relax now. So you might get Leeds United at a good moment, because the send-off was so good last week at Ellen Road, and it's probably a good time to play them. I mean, it's going to be nail-biting, nerve-wracking, agonising for both sets of supporters, isn't it, on Sunday? What's it going to be like to be there, do you think, and what's it going to come down to? I think you've just got to try and be as composed as you possibly can. You've got to start having a little look around what forecast will be against what stage of the game. Do we have to take risk earlier? What's going across on the Spurs game, for instance, if you're at West Ham, and all you can do then is just get a plan, get a system. The experienced players have got to take charge, try and cool it down as best you can once you go and set out. I was involved with a game right on the last day when we were fighting for relegation for Manchester City against Liverpool. I was 18 and we thought 2-2 was enough, and then they're telling us, no, it's not enough, you've got to carry on. And it wasn't enough, and you see that disappointment, so that high and low in games come along very, very quickly. The change, you think you're there, then you're not. But it's just something they've got to try and get hold of, this West Ham side. And if Spurs, and I think if they weren't to do it, I mean, I can imagine in that stadium. I know two massive clubs that are in this situation. It should never be the case. Yeah. No, it used to be the old days of holding radios up to the head, didn't it? Now it's no. All right, Jules, I'm not that old. It wasn't that bad. Yeah, you were. 18 when that happened. You were sending it. Yeah. Michael Brown, our guest on the Premier League show this.
We're all set for an exciting final day in the Premier League with Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham fighting for Premier League survival. Right, one game to go. Who do you see staying up?
Well, we did the prediction a few weeks ago, and I had West Ham going down. And when everybody thought that, oh, they're doing so well, they're going to get out of it easily, I just felt they peaked, and they did peak. And now they're in a position that it's their hands are in, with Tottenham, really, in what they do. So I still think West Ham will go down. Right. I think just about West Ham will go down. But I think it'll go down to the absolute wire, because I've been in this position of relegation last day, and you're waiting for the minutes. And I remember when I was at West Brom, and we finished our game and we won our game, and we still were waiting for other results.
One of the most famous Great Escapes.
Yeah, and I remember being on the pitch, and there's fans around, and there's literally probably 20,000 fans around, and we were all like, what's happening? Is it finished? What's the score? And you're waiting minutes and minutes, and it feels so long, but I think it's going to go down to literally the last few minutes. But it's interesting how West Ham are in this position, but also the biggest surprise is how Tottenham are still in this position.
Well, Michael Bridge has all the details ahead of the final day.
Indeed, yeah, I've been looking at some of the numbers behind Spurs and West Ham's final day matches. Here's how things look at the bottom heading into Sunday. Spurs have the advantage because of their superior goal difference. A draw at home to Everton will realistically be enough to see them safe. West Ham need to beat Leeds at home and hope their former manager David Moyes can do them a favour with Everton beating Spurs. So which teams has the easier final day fixture? Well, Spurs are winless in their last 10 home games and haven't won since December. That was against Brentford. But they have a good record against Everton at home. They've lost just one of their last 16. Now, let's focus on West Ham. And the last time they played Leeds at home, 3 years ago today, that was in the league, of course. That was their final home game of the 2022-23 season, and they won 3-1 with captain Jarrod Bowen amongst the scorers. And West Ham have lost just one of their last 19 matches when playing their final league game of the season at home. So they'll be confident heading into Sunday, you would imagine.
Yeah, but they have to win, though, don't they, Rob? Would you prefer, on the last game of the season to survive, to have Everton at home or Leeds at home?
Thanks, Bash. Yeah.
I think, to be honest with you, they're both the same. It doesn't matter. What I would prefer, I'd prefer to be Tottenham in this situation. I prefer to have everything in my hands. So if I win, if I do well, if I go and win the game, it doesn't matter what happens.
A draw will do.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go for a draw, there's danger in that.
Yeah.
Because what you tend to find in the Premier League, it's very ruthless that all of a sudden you're 2 or 3-0 down or 3-1 down and you think, oh, a draw was good enough. Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. But I would prefer to be in Tottenham's shoes in terms of it's in their own hands. But how interesting it is that West Ham obviously got rid of David Moyes, and they're still relying on David Moyes with Everton now to get them out of relegation. So it's going to be a pulsating day, a nervous day. A few weeks ago, I said West Ham will go down, but I think it's really who turns up on the day and who's ready for that pressure, because that is a big pressure. Championship or Premier League, you don't win because both teams really have to go for the win. If you don't win, most likely, I would say you're going down.
I still think that Everton are the most unpredictable team in the Premier League, and that's who Tottenham have got. That's the thing. But
you could say that same thing about Leeds. If you look at Leeds' form in the last, probably 4 or 5 months, I think they've been exceptional also, and they've beaten teams where you think they'll lose that, then they go and win. So they're a good team as well, and they've got some unpredictability as well going forward because they can score goals.
Yeah, fair enough. But with West Ham, you mentioned there how it looked like they were getting out of it, and everyone was saying, look, they're showing some fight. Against Newcastle, I haven't seen them play worse than that all season. And this was at a time when, because they showed fight. Okay, fair enough. They showed,
but I agree with you.
Showed fight against Arsenal, didn't they? Yeah. Even though they lost. But against Newcastle, it's like there was only one team on the pitch.
Yeah.
How can that happen when you get there? It's at your fingertips survival.
Because
fall down now, how frustrating will that be?
Yeah, very frustrating and also it's really the mindset of why you're in the relegation zone, really, because it's easy to pick your game up for an Arsenal because it's a big game and, what a team to play up against, and then you don't perform against Newcastle away, which not should win, but you must win because
going
of the
into
position
that game,
you're in.
It looked like West Ham had a chance in that game.
Yeah.
And they didn't play like they had a chance.
They didn't, and they were nowhere near it. They played like a team already relegated, not a team that needed to win that game to try and avoid relegation. And that was the worry, because it looked like the confidence was down. It looked like the tactics were all over the place. And it looked as if a team where I remember seeing them in the first couple of months of the season. And I'm thinking, it's not long before they go down. Now they've had to pick up some good signings, and they've showed that they can be a better team. But that was back to why they're in the relegation form in the first place, because because I always look at it the other way. If I'm Newcastle in that situation, I'm thinking, how easy is this? And that is the worry. And when you're in the Premier League and you think, how easy is this? If you're Newcastle a player and you can just go through on goal from the halfway line and countless times, and you can just pull balls back easily with no competition, you think, wow, are they already relegated, or are they trying to avoid relegation? But that was one of the worst performances I've seen all season.
Yeah.